Today, I am with pregnant and popped partner Ava Gao, the curious mama. Our topic today is secrets to raising a curious and confident baby and nurturing your baby's curiosity and confidence as part of daily life. On this masterclass, Ava will share key predictors of a child's success and well-being based on decades of research that many parents may not know, plus foundations in nurturing your child's confidence and curiosity, and tips to build a connected relationship with your baby that can be included as part of your rhythm at home and when exploring outside. The legal stuff. The educational content of our masterclasses is the work of our pregnant and popped partners. We are not licensed medical professionals, and this is not a medical platform. The content of today should not be considered medical advice. Instead, it is always best to consult with your healthcare provider for any specific medical concerns or questions, and use the information from today as a complementary tool to help guide those discussions and healthcare plans. In short, our goal is to provide a supportive and informative community for expecting and new parents. But it's important that you always prioritise your own health and the advice of your healthcare provider. Now, if you can just indulge me for a moment, I will very briefly introduce myself before we get on to the really juicy stuff with Ava. I am Cathy Rougier, the founder of Empower and Pregnant and Popped. At my core, I am a certified postpartum doula, which means that I provide home-based physical and emotional support in the first few days, weeks, and months of having a baby. I visit people's homes for either 2 or 4 hours each consultation, and I provide hands-on support for all things postpartum recovery and newborn care. From breastfeeding, bottle feeding, sleep, digestive discomfort, gassy babies, C-section and perennial healing, to sometimes even washing the dishes. I am with you in the trenches, wiping your baby's bottom at the same time as mopping your brow or tears, with different tissues, of course. But this masterclass isn't about me. It's about the curious mama in all of us. So let me introduce our guest. Ava is a motherhood and parenting coach, a maternal mental health advocate, the host of the Making Mama Magic podcast, as well as being the mama to 2 awesome boys. She is wonderful at holding space for people in a way that they feel seen and curious to explore what's possible. She supports mothers to free themselves from guilt and overwhelm and journeys with them to make sense of the past and find peace and joy in life, and most importantly, parenting.
Thank you so much, KP, for the wonderful introduction. Hi, everyone. So glad that you're here today. And I think today is like the meat of the week, and you have chosen to come here to listen to me and to learn more about raising curious and confident baby. So I would keep this a very engaging and light sharing. So just a very brief introduction, but since Katie has kind of introduced myself already, also like what she mentioned, I work with mothers to free themselves constant guilt, frustration, yelling, and experiencing more peace and flow in parenting. I'm also a certified Montessori assistant and also a certified circle security parenting facilitator. And I think one of the things I'm really passionate about is to support parents and mothers through different transitions in life, to sift through the noise and find more confidence in their life and parenting. So that's the work that I do, whether it's through one-to-one coaching, whether it's through my membership called Connected, and also online trainings and workshops that I facilitate, whether it's online or in person as well. So that's who I am, in case you might not know me. So what we will learn from today's masterclass are the 3 things. Firstly is the key predictor of the child's success and well-being based on decades of research that many parents may not know. Number 2 is the 3 foundations in nurturing the child's confidence and curiosity. And number 3 is my top tips in building a connected relationship with your baby and your young child or toddler, if you have one, that you could include as part of the daily rhythm at home or exploring outside. bonus is I'll be sharing access to my training called Lighting the Load that you could access to it for free at the end of this masterclass. So stay with me and you'll get the access to the masterclass, the link through at the end of the masterclass. So I think we all are seeing a lot of advertisements every time, right? Whether is it online or on social media or people sharing us. A lot of people are sharing about young babies and children attending enrichment classes. Whether is it swimming class, right break development, or like, in terms of like indoor play gym. And they talk about a lot of benefits of this, whether is it social development, social emotional, motor skills, and in terms of like language development, numeracy development. And personally, I think classes are wonderful ways to bond with our children, to learn and play together. There's a shared experience together, right? And there is that moment that we could engage our children, especially if they are less than 18 months. Usually it is a parent-child workshop. And there are so many fun things that you could learn and play together. However, there's one thing that many parents don't know that links to a child's success and well-being. And that is that one key predictor of success and well-being is when they have at least one secure attachment with at least one adult caregiver. According to decades of research based on attachment theory and clinical psychology, having a secure attachment influences a child's way that they see their relationships, that they see their friendships, and impacts their self-confidence and esteem in life, whether it's as a child, as a baby, or even as they grow up as adults and beyond. So in the research, children who have secure attachment will do better in school, have better relationships. And this is shown in the research that they have done over, I think, 60 years, that is done by a group of psychologists. And a few of them actually came together to form this framework called Circle Security. And they are clinicians and psychologists, psychotherapists that works with families and children in the USA. And they came together to share this framework, which is called a Circle of Security. And a secure attachment is the foundation to nurturing our children's confidence and curiosity in our children's life. And what they state is behind every behavior, there's a need. And through responsive and attuned caregiving, children can develop more capacity to understand themselves, to know who they can reach out to in terms of trying to figure out, all these confusing things, all these overwhelming things. And through providing that secure base as parents and caregivers, they are able to have more self-awareness and more emotional resilience, and thereby being able to feel more curious and more willing to explore other things around them. I have to say, through my own experience as a mama, it also depends on their temperament as well. So like, there are some children that are more sensitive. They need to be having more attuned caregiving and responsive caregiving. Whereas there are some children, they are more outgoing and, more confident in that sense. But in the end, it's about knowing and seeing what are the ways to attune to the needs, whether is it not at this point of time, or whether it's in terms of anticipating what feelings they are going through. So it is about understanding and responding accordingly, so that they see us as caregivers as a safe haven and secure base that they can come back to wherever they want. And that's essentially what secure attachment is. There's a lot of research and things about attachment theory that influences a lot of different things in life, but for today I will not talk about it because I'm kind of the geek about theory of the attachment as well, but I think that would be a separate thing altogether. But for today, what I wanted to kind of like share is the importance of secure attachment. and also how it influences the way that we can do in terms of nurturing our children's foundation in the curiosity, in the confidence. Some parents that I speak with, sometimes they feel like, oh, my child is like so shy, so don't want to interact with people and all. And I think what I mentioned about in temperament, sometimes some children might be a bit more, need more time to warm up. But I think it's about understanding what we can do to support him or her at that moment of time. So I'll move on to the next part, which I talk about the 3 foundations in nurturing your child's curiosity and confidence. And that is about building trust and connection with a child as number 1. I talk about briefly about secure attachment, and I think why this is important in terms of trust and connection is when our children feel safe and seen and secure, they are willing to kind of like share their challenges and difficulties. And what this means is we as parents need to be attuned to our children to be able to listen to compassion, and when they feel safe and secure, they will be able to go out and explore and play. And I think the key thing here is there will be times that we might not be able to fully attune and understand what our child is going through, right? Especially when they are nonverbal, and sometimes we might be distracted and all. But the key thing that what has found out from the research is to build the pathway to secure attachment. 3 out of 10 interactions is sufficient already for them to feel like we are present with them. So there's no need to be perfect in that sense. That we need to be always there, always like making sure that we are there when they need support. It's really about the attempt, the presence. Some people have asked me, like my one-to-one clients for coaching have asked me, I feel really stressed thinking about wanting to make sure everything is okay for my child. And I feel like I'm not spending enough time with my child. And they ask me, like, is it a quality time versus quantity time that matters the most? In my opinion, I think quality time matters the most rather than quantity. If we spend a lot of time with our children distracted and thinking about other things, I think the value of connection and really trust and being with our child, it is the quality time where we are present and playing with them and making time for them to interact with us, reading books with them. And ultimately, our children really desire our presence and connection when we are there with them. It's not just the gifts or the toys that we play with them or we buy for them. It's really about having someone who they know that they matter to us. Whether is it their babies or toddlers or preschoolers or even beyond when they grow up. And now you may be wondering, I have so many things in my life. There's so much things that I need to manage and handle at work, at home. Chores are piling up. Work supervisor is telling me there's so many things I need to do. How can I have more of these things to do with our child? And like I mentioned, it's about quality of time. And one of the things that I always share with the people that I work with is, yes, there is that commitment with our children to look out for time. But one thing that I like to do and one tip I like to share is to look at our rhythms of life with our children, which I'll elaborate a bit more in the later of the masterclass. But I think one thing that I like to look out for is what are the things that we are already doing that we can build the connection and trust and the relationships with our child since young, since it's a baby, whether is it changing diapers, singing a song with them, massaging them, interacting with them, having that eye-to-eye connection, or when they grow up and they become more wiggly and all, having them to be involved in keeping toys and keeping clothes, and inviting them as they grow up to be part of like preparing food together, mopping the floor together, wipe tables together. I mean, toddlers love to wipe things and clean things. So rather than stopping them to do and worrying that they will make a mess, invite them to do it together and have a way to kind of allow them to feel that they are involved and they are part of the whole sense of rhythm in the family, and it builds their sense of belonging, and they feel safe and secure with us and also at home. So it is also allowing them to feel more confident and feel that they have something that they can contribute in their household. And I know it can be tricky for some of us who feel like, this mess is just terrible to manage sometimes. But as we take a step back sometimes, it may be a double sometimes, but we can allow like a little area for them to be involved, and they might feel like, oh, I can do something. And especially as they grow up as toddlers, they would want to assert their autonomy. These are great ways to kind of involve them and allow them to feel like they don't need to be in the power struggle with us, and they feel like they can do something rather than being told what to do constantly. And that's a beginning of building a peaceful partnership for children. And that would be a foundation also for them to feel a sense of confidence in their own life. The other part that I think is also very important is doing the work ourselves, because sometimes we might have experiences of our childhood that might impact the way that we respond to our children. Like, for example, for me, I was constantly told not to cry as a child, being a very sensitive child. And when I became a mother, I realized that I got really triggered when my child cried, as young as when they were like 2 or 3 months old. And I was thinking about it when I was a new mom, and I realized that, oh my gosh, it's really about my own experiences. So all these things is inner work and understanding of our own selves. But I think it's really also about knowing what we can do to unpack this, to understand this, and to learn how to take a pause, get curious, and to unpack and learn ways to not react, and learn ways how to respond to our children. Because whatever things that we might react to our children will impact the relationship with them. I'm not saying that we need to be perfectly calm, perfectly zen, and because that is definitely not idealistic, but it's about allowing us to recognize that, hey, I'm getting into a space where I'm feeling very tense, and knowing what we can do about it, which I talk about it in some of my workshops that I organize about triggers as well. Yeah, so that is what I wanted to share about trust and connection for children. So I do have a Mama Mantra cards, and one of the things that I like to do is to use my Mama Mantra cards that I find that allow me to ground and regulate myself, so that I can find a space to get curious and respond to my children instead of shouting and reacting to them. So these cards, they are like coaster materials, and what I usually do is I put it on my tables, I put it at some of my apartments bomb shelter, because there's like a nice surface on them. So this helped me to kind of like ground myself and remind myself of the parent that I want to be, remind ourselves of little things that I could do to tell myself that this is what I'm doing and what I'm trying. It's not perfect, but it's about reminding myself that what I can do instead of reacting to them. And the second point is about allowing our child to make choices at the age appropriate areas. So sometimes we might feel like we need to correct our children and let them know what is right or wrong. And this can be tricky because children learn best through experimenting, through figuring out, through a very tactile, hands-on kind of activities, understanding the correlation between different things, and whether is it games or puzzles or like books or things. And I think it's really about empowering them in the environment that they're in. So for example, like for me, in my own space, I have a lot of choices that allow my kids to have, whether is it toys or whether is it in terms of their clothing. And environment plays a huge part about building our children's confidence since baby. So this is a photo of my second born. as a baby, I think he was around like 8 months old here, and this was probably later at around 9 or 10 months old. And in my area at home, what I do is I have invitation for play for them to pick up their toys or books as and when they want to. And I think has allowed my children to feel more confident in choosing what they like. Of course, sometimes they make too much choices. So what I do is, like for example, when we go out, I invite him to tell me what kind of clothes that they want to choose, and this could be very little things, and it will not take more than 1 minute sometimes to kind of allow them to choose. But these are major to children. They can feel that they are be able to voice their choice and be able to contribute and voice what they like or not like. And through the whole journey of evolving them, they feel the sense of competence in the sense that they can make decisions and be seen and heard, and allowing their interests to be shared. And this will be very valuable as they grow up, because they have the confidence to voice out what they like and dislike. And in terms of consent, in terms of sharing their interests, in terms of looking out ways that they can fuel their interests, and knowing what they can do in their own journeys of life. So making choices is one part of thing. The other thing is also about solving problems. So sometimes, our babies or children might get situation where they are stuck in a certain way, and it's tricky sometimes because we want to help our children and we want to be that mama bear to help them not to cry, not to get frustrated. But what I observe is, when we make space for our children to try, to learn, it doesn't mean that we have to completely ignore them, but it's like trying to understand and let them know and hold space for them that they can figure out. So I think we might have babies who might be flipping sometimes, and if you've noticed, like babies, when they learn how to flip, they might get stuck in that space and it's so awkward, right? And then, like we want to try to help them to flip, but we know that they need to build the muscles. It's the same thing for solving problems. Our children need to build that muscles to figure out and to learn, and giving them the space and understanding age appropriate behaviors and things that we can do to gently support them. And like for example, a baby might not be able to piece a 10-piece puzzle, but if we allow him or her to stack the blocks that when they have enough strength in their pencil grip, then they will be slowly able to, build accordingly, that they will be able to feel the sense of achievement and the sense of confidence that they can do something. And I know this could be a tricky thing sometimes, but it's about practicing our own responses and reaction as well, and to allow our children to kind of explore a little bit before jumping in to save them. Yeah, so this is number 2. And number 3 is allowing our child to make mistakes and learn from them. So it's correlated to the previous point, whereby we talk about learning and interacting. And I think one thing that I've noticed, especially for many Asian families, is that we are very afraid of our children making mistakes and doing things wrong sometimes. And I think one of the things that I have also learned as a child through my childhood is I have to kind of unlearn, is to realize that making mistakes is part of learning process, and like they help us to learn what work and don't work. And children need a journey of learning and experimenting to figure out. And sometimes they might whine and cry, and while we feel that sometimes we want to help them, allowing us and allowing them to hold space for their feelings and responding and acknowledging their struggles, they will learn from it. It might take a while, but I think it's allowing them to build the resilience and giving that space to them to do so. And then secondly is really about modeling growth mindset. So one of the things that I've noticed increasingly from conversations with primary school, elementary schools, secondary school children, is that they find their children not having the mental strength and the resilience when they go into mistakes, when they do something bad, or when they're being seen as they are a bad student. And I think while we know that it is a very real issue, it is going back to when they are very young, when they are toddlers or babies even, is to welcome all these things that they have failed and allowing us to model growth mindset. For example, when I do something wrong, rather spill something, probably like pour a water on the floor, or like spill milk, or like drop things on the floor, and I may have broken it for whatever reason. I sing this face that is adopted from this book that I read with my children, which is from this cartoon character called Daniel Tiger. Some of us may know this. And it was a book about cooking and baking together. And there was a phrase called the phrase that says that it's okay to make mistakes. So I use it as a more sing-along tone. So I sing with them like, it's okay to make mistakes. Try to fix them and learn from them too. So sometimes I don't sing along with them. I say and sing to myself. It's like an inner talk that I outwardly say it. And eventually my eldest child caught it and sing it when he made mistakes at home. So like when he like poured water on the floor, he knows that he is okay to, pour on the floor, and he can clean it up very easily when there's cloth available. So it's like allowing them to feel like making mistakes is not a big deal, and allowing them that they can learn from this and make sense of what they do. One thing that we can do is to be mindful about expectations of our children, because when we blame and shame them for what they have done wrongly, they may see mistakes as too overwhelming and too scary, and their brain will kind of freeze. They are not able to think or react. And I think what happens is their brain will stay in the reptile side, the emotional part brain, and they cannot process what is going on. One of the things that I do see is sometimes when children repeatedly get all this blame and shame, sometimes they will be not able to solve problems, and they will feel like it's very hard for them to break out of the freeze mode in that sense. And a lot of unpacking, a lot of unprocessed, how to put it, not unprocessing, but a lot of things that we do impacts the way that our children see or learn from mistakes. And actually, one thing that many people might not know is a brain of a human being is only fully developed at the age of 26 years old. So like from their 0 years old all the way until 26 years old, there's so many things that's happening. And our children brain is always developing in their growing years. So it might not be like one time or two times that they've learned from the mistake, but through repetition, through neural connections that they form inside their brain, they will try and learn eventually. So it might be a long time, and it might be frustrating sometimes, because like some of us may have triggers when it comes to like mess and untidiness. But when we allow them and take time for them to learn from it, it takes partnership with our children, and it is worth it to allow them the space to build that confidence and to allow them to learn from all these mistakes. So my third part of this masterclass is about top tips that you can build a connected relationship with your baby, that you can include as part of the rhythm at home and exploring outside. So I talked about it briefly earlier on already, like, having meal times together, or in terms of like preparing meals together. These are one areas that you could invite your child to be part of it when they're a bit older, like toddler age. But like at home, since changing diapers is already part of the routine, involving them in wiping the things, or putting things back, and showing appreciation for being involving, and also understanding the rhythm that they can be part of in the house. The other thing that I think is pretty easy for many parents to do is to have family rituals. Like for example, a certain day, we are doing a certain thing. Like for us as a family, my family enjoys like a McDonald's breakfast every Saturday, and no matter where we are, whether it's a school term or a holiday, we keep to this ritual as part of a familiarity and connection within the family. So, like for example, we could do like, Sunday morning, it could be like going out to the park, and whether they are babies or toddlers, they can enjoy in their own ways of park, and that gives a sense of familiarity and rhythm. And it's really about doing it together as a family and building that connection. The other thing that I also think is also easy to do is to look out for things that you enjoy and also your children may enjoy in their own ways. So one of the things that I have learned through like my certification and courses about child development and about parenting is children learn best through relationships with people. Like it could be playing, it could be watching TV together and talking about it. I think some people might say screen time is bad, but personally, I feel that screen time can be good when there's a common sense of watching it together and sharing and talking about it. And of course, there's a balance to it as well between screen and also in person and outdoor play. And I think through the relationship, not just memorizing things, there are a lot of like classes that says that, oh, our children need to learn how to memorize things so that they can develop their right brain and all. And one thing that I've learned from some of the theories and research is that while there's goodness in memorizing things, but when they memorize things, they need to learn the correlation in their own life rather than just blindly memorizing. And I think increasingly when they grow up in schools, it's not just memorizing, but also how they can articulate out how they see things, how they feel about things, and how they can interact with the people around them, whether is it friends, students, fellow classmates, teachers. So it is about the relationship in the end that they could kind of connect with each other. Personally, I love drawing. Sometimes I do invite my children to paint and draw together. So I have two children, 6 and 2, and the 2 years old would be, just scribbling. or the 6 years old, he draws differently. He writes and draws differently. So it's really about having the common interest together. I know some families, they like to do like a dance party in the evening when, the kids are really grumpy and all. And the key thing is to look out for things that they can do together as a family, whether is it outside. My oldest child have interest in science, like, science as in like all this like street signs and words. And these were the things that really helped him to identify letters and like colors instead of books and all, but he really got interested. So I think it's really about allowing us to understand their interest and to use that opportunity to introduce them. So it is interactive rather than, some children, they might find it really challenging to sit down and practice writing and reading. When we look around us, there's so many words that we can see, so many colors that we can see. And when they kind of understand that, hey, this is something around me and this is something that it is life in that sense rather than just a book itself, this will be useful in terms of helping them to build the connection with us and at the same time to learn. So whether is it as young as babies to look out for like leaves, textures, flowers, or as when they grow out, learning about words, numbers. So these are things that we can already incorporate in terms of our own experiences with them. And at the same time, they learn something that they can relate and they can have fun together. So I think it's really a win-win-win-win. A lot of wins in many sense. Or it was like a wow, I didn't know that this was like the something that I could do rather than having them to go for additional enrichment class. I would love to hear from you all.
Hi, Ava. It's Kathy here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You and I can just cover some of those incredible points that you came across. I blew me away. You said 26 years old was when
Yeah.
our brains are considered kind of fully formed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That explains a lot, actually, about my formative years.
A lot of experimenting, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. Also gives me a few excuses, maybe for some of those early
Mm.
adult years behavior that was going
Mhm.
on. So,
Mm.
yeah. We do have, so whilst you were chatting there, and I'll just give you a chance to go back and maybe think of this, you were going through kind of your top tips, and I think some people maybe might have kind of missed that. I think you kind of gave us 3 top tips. So maybe at some point, if you could just go back and give us like a summary over that, like point 1, point 2, and point 3, while you're kind of, if you can ruminate on that in the back of your brain and go kind of back
Mhm.
through the notes. Someone has asked building mental strength or saying building mental strength at home, and they love your take on that, Ava. Yeah, and I very much agree that, you know, kind of drip feeding those concepts of that, those Daniel Tiger concepts, you know, it's okay to make mistakes. You know, we keep going, and that actually you're meant to make mistakes. This is part of life. We learn through mistakes. We learn through trying.
Mhm.
And I see that actually with my own daughter. My daughter's 6, and
Mhm.
she really does sometimes properly tell me, no, I'm going to work this out. Like,
Yeah.
like, you know, get out of the way, mum. I don't need your help. Like, I can work this out. And she doesn't mind if the end result isn't perfect. You know,
Mhm.
it's because it
Mhm.
hurts. She's proud of the end result. An example I often give, and I know you talked about this, about doing things together,
Yeah.
and that's hard sometimes to let go of. You know, it's really like
Mm.
when they do want to help, and you know that actually you're still going to have to go back behind them and redo.
Yeah.
And that can be a really tough mental leap to make when there's only so many hours in the day and you're kind of making the job take twice as long. I don't know if you would agree. One of the ways that I cope with that is sometimes when I remember to, I will set time aside for what I call in my own head an imperfect job.
Mm.
So I don't have time on a Sunday for her to normally help me make the dinner, because
Mm.
by the time I've thought about what I'm going to make, it probably should have been cooked already. So I kind of need to throw it all together and get it out
Yeah.
on the table.
Yeah.
However, if I think a little bit ahead, I will do what I call like imperfect baking. When I
Mm.
bake a cake, I mean, I can't bake a cake anyway. It's not edible, even if I did it on my own, let alone
Yeah.
if my 6-year-old helps me. I am not a baker.
Yeah.
When we bake cakes, there is absolutely zero intention that it's going to look good or taste good. In fact, it's probably going to go straight in the bin when my daughter is in bed, so I don't upset her. But I'll specifically set time aside for that imperfect task, and we will spend that time having a laugh, having a joke, making the grossest color icing you could possibly imagine, and forcing my husband to take a bite and say that it tastes really good when it really doesn't. So yeah, I mean, does that kind of fit in as well? I know that is like, again, another extra job
Mm.
really that I'm creating, but
Mhm.
it's a touch point that sometimes I find that I can do with her, and it does bring me that connection with her.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think there's that moment of joy and connection and laughter and lightheartedness in the family. And of course, like, sometimes when we really indulging in terms of the color and all the ingredients. But I think it is a moment of connection, and it's really part of like what you already have in the house. And I think that's a great idea. Though I also wonder what is possible to make it more edible, I guess, because like I think it would be really nice to enjoy it together, rather than throw it away.
My daughter always says that it's really tasty. That's probably because she's put like the entire packet of icing sugar on top
Oh my,
of
okay, that
but
explains.
but yeah, so she always enjoys it. From an adult perspective, no, they're not the most enjoyable, but she doesn't think that. So I guess that's the most important thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The other thing I took a note of was that
Mm,
you said, was it 3 out of 10 kind of
mm.
touch points need to be responsive, and that's enough for them to feel like they've got our attention?
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Can you elaborate on kind of how does that work? So is that, in my mind, I went immediately to those times when I'm busy and maybe I'm working on my laptop and
Yeah,
daughter is kind of in my ear,
yeah,
wanting me to do stuff. And, most of the time I'm like, mummy's busy, wait until I finish, wait until I finish. But are you saying kind of 3 out of 10 approaches that
mm-hmm,
makes
mm-hmm.
to me, if
Yeah,
I look up, give a more responsive approach 3 out of 10 times, she's more likely to feel like, oh, no, okay, mummy does care. She's here for me. I'll come back to her later.
yeah. Yeah. So I think the key thing is not okay, how do I put it? The research says that it's at least 3 out of 10 times. So it is about interactions, that's what you've mentioned, but also in terms of constancy, in terms of showing that the presence is there. So it's not just like in one situation, but over time, what on the average that at least 3 out of 10 times that there is like the sense that the person sees or the child sees and know that that she's present and and the caregiver, the parent is there for them. I think the intention is to really to not feel like we need to be always attuned and present, and that is literally impossible, and that's just being perfect in that sense, but allowing them to have moments of time that they can be with us, and there are other moments that we might not be able to be present, but they know that we will be coming back to them
Yeah,
in that sense. Yeah.
yeah, powerful stuff.
Mm.
So just taking you back to those top tips, if I could get
Yeah.
you to summarize your
Yeah.
top tips, is that an easy task? Have I asked the impossible?
Wow. Summarize. Hmm.
Well,
I think
what are your three top? Give us kind of your three top things to take away.
I think firstly is to give ourselves the compassion of, that we can't do everything and allow ourselves to have moments in our home and in our life with our children to connect with them. So like these are things that we've already been doing. That's one. The other thing is to allow ourselves to understand that, building curiosity and connection with our children and confidence in our children is a journey, right? Because sometimes we may get frustrated and like just feeling really terrible with a lot of things that's happening in our lives, and we might be in a season that we're super busy and all, but knowing that there are things that we can already do, and we don't need to spend like big bucks on enrichment classes, right? It's about knowing that there are things that we already can do and will be doing with them. I think also not comparing with others, and with social media and everything, it's allowing us to recognize our children's strengths and interests. So that's the second one. What else? Um,
While you're thinking about it, I know you were talking about the enrichment classes.
yeah.
To invite people to give us a thumbs up if they've kind of felt a bit overwhelmed looking at enrichment classes, because I certainly do. I still
Mm,
wonder what more I should be doing. I mean, my daughter's 6, so I
mm,
can ask her now, like what does she want to do more of? Uh,
yeah.
and my daughter's a very physical girl. She enjoys movement. She enjoys,
Mm,
yeah, anything that kind of gets her wiggles out, which is useful for me
yeah.
because then she's tired at the end of the day.
Yeah, about the CNA video about Hey Guru. So that's the right brain development program that I think a lot of influencers share on social media. Yeah, it's very stressful because I've seen parts of it as well, the CNA video, and they're literally just showing like, flashcards like throughout the whole sessions and different parts. And for me as adult art, I just like I just freeze when I see it. It's just
Yeah.
so but based on what they think and the research, I don't know whether it's a third party research or what is it validated or what, but they claim that having all this builds their muscles in their right brain development. It helps them to memorize things. My take for that is, and I mentioned earlier on, is yes, there's goodness in memorizing things, but whether they can relate to their whole environment in terms of like what's happening in their life, in their relationship with people. I mean, if you memorize things but you can't relate to people or learn things, I think it's not helpful in terms of their own development. So yeah, so I think while it's great that our children can memorize a lot of things, I think the question is what kind of qualities or things we want them to have rather than just blindly memorize things. Yeah.
I think something that strikes me today as well is we don't know what we're preparing our children for
Oh
yet.
yeah.
In the
Absolutely.
old days, they did know,
Yeah.
our professions, our career path, or lack of them a few years ago, if we were female,
Yeah.
it was known you were going to be a fireman or a secretary, like it was
Yeah.
defined and you were able to train and learn based on it.
Yeah.
Now, what are we training people for? I mean,
Yeah.
you ever thought being an influencer on Instagram was going to make someone millions of dollars?
Yeah.
We just didn't know that would happen. And
Yeah.
memorizing cards doesn't prepare someone to be an Instagram influencer. It might prepare them to be a jet fighter pilot. I don't know, but it probably doesn't prepare them for other things. So I
Yeah.
do think we have to give ourselves a little bit of a break because we are stepping into the unknown, and
Mhm.
crafting children's characters and personalities and mental health will
Mhm.
enable them to go in the direction they want to go as soon as they show those signs.
Yeah.
Also, I'm amazed the more I travel and the more I live in different countries, how
Mhm.
different the education systems are.
Oh yeah.
I hear and I'm understanding that a lot of the European educational systems, they don't introduce reading, for example,
Mm.
in its truest sense
Yeah.
until at least grade 1. So
Yeah.
you're
6 years
seeing
old,
like,
7 years old. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
6, 7-year-olds, before there's really any expectation of them being able to read in its truest sense.
Yeah.
But other parts of the world, especially in parts of Asia, that would
Mhm.
be unthinkable.
Yeah. Yeah. It is the whole cultural, societal expectation that influence the way we see our children's learning and growth as well. Like what you rightly point out in Europe, some of the European schools, they actually don't really like in preschool, they actually use a lot of play-based learning to teach things and to engage the children. But like in Singapore, I think it's pretty uncommon for that to happen. And I think that also, I guess it's really about understanding, like, in the end, what are we preparing our children for? Are we preparing our children for schools or are we preparing our children for life?
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So I think that's a point of question for me as well as a parent as well, because sometimes I am also pressured by all these things, right? And then I'll be thinking, am I preparing my kids for life or for school? Then it's very clear to me that life is the answer to me. And that
Yeah.
allows me to make the decision, to look at what I can decide for my child and to see whether they want to go for something that they enjoy or, force them to do things that they don't enjoy. It's about allowing that whole space open up to understand what I can do or not do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is an incredibly powerful sentence to leave with everyone. What are we preparing our children for, school or life? And I think a lot of people, hopefully everyone on that's listening, that will resonate with them and really help guide them when they're making those small and big decisions throughout the day on what to do with their children.
Yeah, so I just want to share some of the ways that you can work with me. I do have one-to-one coaching that allows parents and mothers who feel like they've read all the advices on Instagram or all the books, but still finding like parenting and life overwhelming and stressful. So one of the ways that you can work with me is one-to-one coaching. I have online trainings and in-person workshops, and also I conduct spa masterclass where it's like a safe and non-judgment space where moms can connect and share experiences. And it's just a place where people feel that they are not alone in some of the struggles. That I do some facilitation of reflection and activities to allow you to feel supported and get supported. I do have a masterclass or training. If you could just scan this QR code, you could go to the website and download the free training called Lighten the Mental Load. As we all know, mothers have a ton of mental load that we have in our daily lives. So this masterclass, I do share tips and ways that you could manage your mental load to break free of the repetitive tasks or busy schedules, and to understand a framework that I've put together to conquer all this and regain a sense of peace while we deal with mental load. It will always be there, but it's about understanding what are the options and ways and resources that you can do and get support and get things that you could get the load thing done.
Huge thank you, Ava. I've really, really appreciated this and genuinely learnt a lot. So with that, I will say goodbye to everyone and thank you ever so much for your engagement and your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Katie, and everyone. Take care. Have a good week. Bye.